In today's Smart Swap video, we'll be replacing a network's existing router with the Island Pro. Smart Swap makes replacing an existing router with Island fast and easy. With Smart Swap, Island learns the existing IP address scheme and retains it during the replacement process. Island's DHCP server will provide devices on the network the same IP addresses they had before the swap, often shaving hours off of a typical install. It is important to remember that Smart Swap is very sequence dependent, so make sure you follow the instructions very carefully. Before getting started, let's perform an initial configuration of the Island Pro and make sure the firmware is up to date. First, power up the Island Pro and wait until the indicator light turns blue. This process usually takes about 30 seconds. Next, connect the Island Pro to any active internet connection. In this case, we are connecting Island to an available port on the existing router. At this point, while you may use the Island phone app to complete initial setup, we recommend using a laptop to avoid having to establish Wi-Fi connectivity. But it is up to you. For the purposes of this video, we will continue with configuring the Island Pro using a laptop. Next, connect a laptop to the switch on the existing router, open a browser, and browse to myislandrouter.com. The setup page appears. Initialization is highlighted by default. Click Begin. Next, designate an icon for the device from which you are accessing Island. Click on the default smartphone icon, then click to choose from the list of available icons. Click Select, and then click the arrow in the lower right-hand corner. Assign a name to this device, and then click the arrow in the lower right-hand corner. If you are an integrator configuring this network at a customer's house, you may want to simply call your user Tech or Installer. Click the arrow in the lower right-hand corner. Next, select a color for this user. To change the color, click on the default color and then choose from the selection. Click the arrow in the lower right-hand corner. Next, you'll set the PIN, a 6 to 10-digit number. Be sure to record this PIN for future access to this island. If you would like your browser to remember the PIN, toggle Remember PIN on this device to the right. At this point, Island will automatically check to see if the router's firmware needs to be updated. If necessary, Island will automatically update. If you would like to verify the firmware version, click the main menu located under the hamburger symbol in the upper left-hand corner, select About, and scroll to Versions. Tap on Versions and the current version will be listed along with the message Island is up to date. Exit the menu and return to the home screen. At this point, unplug Island from the existing router and close the browser window on the laptop. You are now ready to initiate the Smart Swap feature. Here's an example of an existing network. You have a cable modem, a router, and a switch. With most existing integrator installations using a separate router, the cable modem or modem router combo is typically already in bridge mode. We'll assume that that is the case and that the modem is already in bridge mode. We also assume the existing Wi-Fi network is up and running. So, let's get started. Be sure the Island Pro is powered up. Since the Island Pro has both copper and fiber ports, make sure you have the appropriate cables on hand for the WAN and LAN connections. First, we're going to connect the switch to whichever port you'll be using as the LAN port on the Island Pro. In this example, we're using an Ethernet cable to connect port 2 on the switch to port 2 on the Island. Island has auto-sensing ports, and you can pick any port you want. However, in this example, we'll use port 2. Once connected, you'll see the port light start blinking on the Island Pro. At this point, the Island Pro is learning the existing network. We do have a single device VLAN set up on this switch, so the Island Pro will learn the VLAN as well. We'll give it maybe a minute or two to learn the network. Next, we're going to be moving the WAN connection from the existing router over to Island, bypassing the existing router altogether. Follow the WAN cable from the modem to the existing router, and disconnect the WAN cable from the existing router, then connect it to port 1 on the Island Pro. Again, Island has auto-sensing ports, and you can pick any port you wish. However, in this example, we'll use port 1. At this point, the modem is disconnected from the original router. Disconnect the switch from the existing router, and the existing router will now be completely disconnected from the network, and Island Pro will be serving as the router. You have now cabled the hardware, and it's time to verify the configuration. While everything on an Island Pro ships on automatic mode to facilitate our Smart Swap feature, We recommend you configure each active interface and set the WAN and LAN interfaces to a specific mode. This prevents any kind of conflicts down the road, especially if you test other devices or access points on your network. Once again, we'll take a laptop and plug it into any available port on the switch, open a browser, and browse to myislandrouter.com. Note that the web interface you see here is identical to the phone app interface you may be using to configure your island. Notice the island graphic. If you hover your cursor over the island, you will see the internet connection is good. In the upper left-hand corner, click on the hamburger icon. Your first order of business is to go to the network menu. The interfaces screen appears. This is what the screen will look like until you put it into geek mode. We recommend geek mode for install because it gives you access to advanced settings and network information, menus, and selections. You will see that interface 1 is recognized as an incoming internet connection, and you will see that Island recommends you set this as a WAN port. Island also recognizes interface 2, which is connected to the switch, as the LAN port, and again recommends that you set it to LAN mode. To implement the WAN and LAN recommendations, we could simply press amend, but instead, let's click on the LAN interface to make some additional changes. We already know that we need to transfer the DHCP scope from the original router to this one. That scope was 100 to 175, so we'll enter that here. While we're in the interface, let's change the mode to LAN. We're now done with this interface. You can see the DHCP scope for the LAN is 100 to 175, which matches the original IP address scheme of the original router. And the interface is now in LAN mode. Once you hit save, click the back arrow to return to the interface menu. Now, let's set the WAN interface. Let's use the amend function to set this interface. Click on amend and you will be prompted, "Are you sure you want to do this?" along with an alert that Island is going to set interface 1 to WAN. And it's done. At this point, the Island Pro is up and running. Now, let's check one more setting in our Smart Swap installation example. Remember how we had a VLAN on the original network? Island supports up to 1028 VLANs, so automatically bringing those over in a network takeover can be very helpful. For this example, it was a single Blu-ray player we wanted to bring over as part of the Smart Swap. We'll check once more to ensure we're still in geek mode. And if you remember correctly, in this example, interface 1 was the WAN interface coming from the modem. Interface 2 is the connection to the switch. Interface 2 reflects 192.168.4.1 from the original network setup. The VLAN from the original network was set up as VLAN ID 3. It is reflected here as a LAN. The IP address is going to be different because it falls in line with what's running on the island right now. SmartSwap did detect the VLAN, brought it in, and set it up automatically, so we have had to take no further steps here. Again, this is all part of the SmartSwap feature. To edit the VLAN, we can tap on VLAN ID 3. It tells us that there is a single device online that's on that VLAN. In this case, that's our Blu-ray player. Here's the IP address assigned to it. The scope default is 50, so that device should have host address 50. The mode is reflected as LAN. So, let's go see if we can find this device under a 168.92 address. We'll hit the back arrow twice to get to the home menu, and then we'll go to the devices menu. You can see that on our sample network there are 9 devices in all. If we click on the 9 devices label, you can see a list of all devices on the network. As we scroll, you see a Blu-ray device with IP address 192.168.92.50 on the interface VLAN 3. We've confirmed that the Smart Swap process is now complete. If you want to explore some of the other settings or options that are available within Island, such as setting DHCP reservations, port forwards, or configuring the DDNS, all these topics are available in our training videos on our support site at support.islandrouter.com.